go. We live. Good day, guys. How y'all doing today? Happy that y'all joining us. Y'all tuning in. We actually very excited today to actually speak about this topic, which is actually leadership amongst kings. Leadership amongst men. And we actually, going to talk to the Wayne Dawson, VIP, transformative living coach, to actually explain why he's actually in this realm, why he's actually a coach dealing with men, dealing with kings in our times, and actually why is this so essential, for us as people today. So right now, I'm going to let Wayne introduce himself, bring himself into the show, and from there, we're going to move forward, man. I hope that this show touches some people's hearts, changes people's minds and spirits, and bring about some changes amongst our men and our kings. That's a necessity at this time in this land right now.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been watching you, communicating with you over the last several months since we first connected.
That's
and
correct.
Any way that I can be a part of what you do and support you, I'm all about that, Nathan. And blessings to yourself and those who support your mission, man. And so what I do, and the reason why we're connecting, is because, like you, I serve and am a servant to our people in many ways. And for many years, I lived in New York. I'm now in Florida. So I got away from the beautiful winters of New York to enjoy the sunshine in Florida. Imagine that.
It's hot right now. It's hot right now.
It is. It's in New York.
Yeah, it's hot.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, it's summertime right now.
Yeah, I would never trade in my shovel again, man. My New York shovel stays where it is, in the basement somewhere. But anyway, this afternoon, I just wanted to share that I still do work with Black men. Formerly, I worked for organizations, one of the leading non-for-profit organizations in the country, and in particular in youth development in New York, and worked along with some real strong brothers and sisters in that work around elevating Black youth and their families. Because if you work with the youth, the families will benefit as well. And I did that for almost 2 decades. Part of the work involved, and that was with the Children's Aid, part of the work involved doing some close work with the Boys and Girls Clubs nationally, setting up youth programs and speaking to youth across the United States. So after moving from then, I also was involved with Graham Windham in terms of foster care work, where I was directly hands-on and involved in training. Training has always been something that I've always had as a second part of who I am. In fact, if you look at most of the photos I've had since I was a youth, I would say 75% of them, I have a mic in my hand or I have an easel behind me. I'm training, I'm delivering, I'm teaching. I was also an adjunct professor at City College for a while, and there I taught in 3 disciplines: in social work, School of Social Work. I taught in, and that was at Hostas actually. I taught in psychology and the School of Education. Enjoyed it all. Now, since I've pursued my lovely bride, Dr. Audrey Dawson, I'm in Florida, where she resided. We raise a blended family of 7 adult kids now.
I thought it was like 20 because you was thinking a lot.
The youngest being 21. I'm just recalibrating here, making sure that when I say kids, we're not leaving anybody out. So there are no kids. The youngest is 21. And we have 3 grandchildren. So it's a wonderful blended family. And she's a clinical psychologist. And today, when I got here to Florida some 8 years ago, I worked with a leading Fortune 50 company in the health area. And I was a manager of training, and I helped do soft skills training along with the usual onboarding of, medical providers and those who supported them. So doctors, nurses, quality people and so forth. Well, I fired corporate America during COVID and decided that if I
Okay.
was to continue to move forward, I wanted to start manifesting and living my dream. And why continue to enrich somebody else's? I thought, and there are so many uncertainties even when you do that. I came from a generation of my father's generation, actually, where you worked for a long time and you got that gold watch and somebody retired you. But that doesn't work today. And so I started a company called VIP Transformative Living. We work with Black males that are dealing through midlife to avoid crisis. Because
what's the age range? What's the age range for this population?
So the hard and fast age range, if we want to look at that for marketing purpose, would be 40. But anybody in terms of men who think that they're approaching midlife, and for some midlife may mean 35 years old or but 40 to say 59 is primarily what the books will have it as midlife, so to speak. And these you can see that we're talking about some Gen X folks here and a little bit of the later millennials as well. So what has happened is, Black men in particular have spent the first couple of decades of their lives just planting flags and going through survival mode and scoring the next goal and competing and trying to get to that level where they are doing more than merely exist based on the circumstances that we're faced here in North America. But what happens is they get to a place where mid-age hits and things start going south. It doesn't have to be, but this is typically what happens. They're not as strong. They're not as attractive in their eyes to women. They're losing muscle mass. We start losing, as of age 30, 5 pounds of muscle mass every decade. So if you don't do anything about that, you can see what happens to the body. They feel less potent or more impotent as a result of this that's going on. They wake up one day and they realize how vulnerable they are because they're seeing people who they went to school with and their parents beginning to die, right? And so they realize that life doesn't last forever. They are also faced with the issue of having provide for a family or a first marriage. They're now dealing with kids that are growing up and out, and a wife that has decided that she is finally going to take on her own life as well as she's getting older. And so they wake up with a roommate rather than the same person they were romantic with 20 years ago. And oftentimes that crisis means chasing a younger love affair, getting that fancy new car, going to the gym and bulking up and, showing some chest hairs. It's
basically
like
trying to live again. It's like trying to live again.
It's real. But what it does is it's also because of limiting beliefs and the way that we have been trained about not wanting to show vulnerability. We long for loving, and loving for a lot of Black men translates to sex. So instead of asking so there is a period of loneliness because after we've gotten all the shiny stuff up until that point, we are then saying, is that it? Is there nothing more? And so my work is to help brothers to have a mind reset so that they can then shift the thinking to understand that life, the second half, is and should be bigger, better, and bolder.
Got you. And that's your adage that you use on LinkedIn. Bigger, better, and bolder.
Bigger, better, and bolder.
And bolder. You use that on LinkedIn. So you actually did mention something that actually piqued my interest. And you're actually talking about relationships defined by sex and not by intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? So intimacy, I think even me as being an older man, a lot of people take intimacy as being sexual encounters, but they actually definitely not the same thing.
No, not at all. for a woman, it's so, and I say this, and hopefully I'm not just stereotyping and pigeonholing people and putting them in a box, but we know just by the way that we are cultured, that this is oftentimes true for a lot of men. Men aren't supposed to cry, aren't supposed to show feelings, aren't supposed to touch base with their softer part. Otherwise, you're acting like a girl. You're being a sissy. Um, that is a mistake. We have to redefine what masculinity means in a healthier way for men. And you can play that role of being strong by showing vulnerabilities,
Okay.
that you are fragile. When a family has a person who dies, and I'll get to your question about sex and intimacy. When a family has a person who dies, typically you'll hear the man say, I'm staying strong for the family. You don't need to do that, my brother. You need to also mourn and show loss the way that humans show loss. Because what happens oftentimes is that oppression or suppression boils over and comes out as anger, depression, anxiety, and those very toxic things that we see oftentimes. I want to take that to the level of intimacy. Because we've been trained like this, we don't know how to have real intimacy. So if our significant other says, come and watch television with us, and scoots up in the couch, we think that's an opportunity to have sex. And for us, that is what our intimacy means, where for our partner, it just means cuddle. It just means, let me know you're there. Put away the phone and see me so I see you and we are feeling each other. And so we have to, like I said, do the mental mindset reset about what these things mean so we can have a more fulfilling life.
Yeah, so coming outside of cultural norms actually been taught to us to actually help us actually release who we really are. And dealing with men, there are different levels of intimacy that actually can incite us if we allow ourselves to actually explore these different levels, other than what culture has actually taught us about what it is to be a man and what it is not to be a man. So I've actually been looking at the work you've been doing. A lot of your posts, you put a lot of content up there like that. You talk about a lot of men all the time, which actually piqued my engagement with you from the beginning. And I just want to, commend you on this path that you're taking. This actually was a really great path you're taking, but also I know it was actually a challenging and enlightening path that you're actually on.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because working for other people is basically working for other people. And even though you may reach hearts and souls in these different organizations, there's nothing like following your own level of intimacy, when you're actually pursuing in the world. Because this is intimacy, right? This path you're on is a level of intimacy. It's not you cut on a couch with another man or anything like that. It's actually you exploring higher attributes for men, but also for yourself, and able to, because you came to a certain level and through all your trainings, the organizations you've been in, corporate America, you're able to now harness this power that you have and share it with other men. So how has this journey been for you, sharing this high level of intimacy, frequency, so-called, with other men? How has this path been to you? Where has it taken you?
It's been a journey, and it continues to be a journey that the richness of it is in each step. There's no true destination because, I never stop growing and learning. And so it's unfolding, and which makes it exciting, passionate. But I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And this is how I learned. The reason why I can have a testimony is because I've gone through many a test, many of which I've failed. I've lived a life with a lot of mess. And so out of that came this message. I have twice been hospitalized in my midlife with death threatening at the door, and didn't realize that I was about to get ill, or ill just came upon me. And as a result, it allowed me to live a more wholesome life, even though I was relatively a healthy eater. I'm a full vegan now. I work out 4 times or 5 times a week. I'll be 60 years old in 2 months, or less. And so one of the things that I've learned along the way is don't take things for granted. You're here today, going tomorrow. And along the way, I mean, I have friends, all the time, that when I meet with brothers, that when we part, I say, I love you, brother. And I feel no way about saying, I love you, brother. In fact, when I was raised by my father, who lived with my mom for 46 years, 11 years before he died with a massive heart attack. Even as a teenager, I kissed my dad at nighttime before going to bed, as I did my mom. He's old school. He didn't say I love you, but I knew he did. But for me and my children, my 2 boys, I hug them, squeeze them, tell them I love them. And I do this with brothers because we have, I believe, to do more of this. I think, if you see the world that we're living in today, I think it's those of us who consider that there is love, innate love, and plenty of it. I think we're the ones who are keeping the place afloat, man, because without that, nobody would want to get up tomorrow morning. And so the journey has been powerful, and most of it is me on the learning side. But because I recognize that I have to give thanks every day, every single day, one of the ways I do that is by touching and giving back. I have a mantra in my head that says, everybody that I build a relationship with, when I walk away from them, they should be feeling better about themselves, that bigger, better, bolder. And so that is my my aim and my mission, my assignment.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you made, because we try to take love out the equation when we actually dealing with each other as men. And love is actually what brings us to the table in the first place.
Yes,
it's actually what causes us to actually pursue certain paths, especially when you get into paths of humanity. Love is actually what brought you there. And to tell brothers, I love you, hug brothers on the street, like even when I was with the Hebrew Israelites, they would salute each other and things of that nature. That was a way of connectivity. But we have to take it beyond that. Saying I love you, I miss you, give each other hugs, give each other kisses. Even when you go into scriptures, you actually see these men that's actually doing those things that you and I are now seeking to emulate and actually bring back to the forefront. You said something about men don't cry and men don't mourn. And it's really ironic because a lot of people go through scriptures. They actually read the Bible from different, religious sets and things of that nature. And there's a passage in there when David was about to lose his son, and he cried. He cried, he mourned, he fasted, he prayed. He did everything he can to get the Most High to actually spare the life of his son, even though the Most High didn't do it. But it actually showed us that there is no offense on us actually expressing ourselves to the Most High and also towards ourselves and towards others that we actually meet in the street. We should be able to cry for one another, love one another, and not just seek all the time to just do business.
Yes.
Our business is to connect. Good.
No, please. I didn't want to interrupt. Please.
No, it's good. Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. So you quoted from the Bible, and so I wanted to just piggyback on that, just to bear this point out. We are told that we were made in the likeness of God, weren't we? And so one of the things that, if that is true, or we believe that, and most religions will tell you that there is that sense of belief, right? That they are a part of the God spirit, If that is true, then we must be aware that there is a spirit within me and a spirit within you. And in some cultures, like in some of the Asian cultures, for example, and in a lot of the African cultures, there is a humbling when people meet each other. The persona meets the other persona. And what they're doing is acknowledging when you see them bow down or you see them do this, they're acknowledging the God in me or the spirit in me is recognizing and receiving the spirit in you. If we start there, if we start there, then we can't do anything but offer pure love. You know what I mean? How
That's
can you
correct.
then, if you are a person who believe in that, how can you then look at your brother and not acknowledge and recognize his divinity?
That's correct. That is a sound point. My daughter said something to me earlier today. She's 12. And, you know, she sees like entities in the world where they basically separating humanity from humanity. And she asked me a question. Who would want to be down here alone? Like who? Like who would want to have this whole world just by themselves? Right? You're not gonna be able to eat people famous cookings, you know, they delicacies, you know, the gifts that they've learned. You're not gonna be able to experience different, you know, ways of the world or different treatments that's in the world because you're actually by yourself. You can't recreate all these things for yourself because by you recreating, you'll never be able to live.
The
Right?
unbridled
That's why
curiosity and innocence of a 12-year-old. Isn't that beautiful?
that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, because we're not here to be alone. We was here to be alone, we would be alone. Right? So we're here to empower the lives of one another, right? And to show that we are worthy of having that connection with one another.
Yeah.
Right? Because without this connection, where do we get our life source from? We know there's a power here, right? We know we have spiritual beings. Some people believe that, some people don't. I believe it was spiritual beings first and foremost. Then we come into the secondary parts of this, actually with our flesh and things of that nature. But we don't connect on a spiritual level. What level of connectivity will we have and how we have peace in our lives if we do not connect with one another on a high scale?
Yeah. 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 You know, us, the black man in America, and in fact across the diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
is becoming endangered. And that is not fiction, that's the fact. You know, we are seeing for various reasons more of us dying or being left to die. You know, I don't want to argue that it's deliberate, but I would say that there's an agenda afoot.
Okay.
We, like you said, we have to hold each other. We have to get back to one of my mentors back in City College, and Professor Dr. Len Jeffries talked about the European psyche and culture being one of the 3Ds: death, domination, and destruction. And as an African people, we know it's about collaboration, cooperation, and communion, as in communal living, the 3 Cs. And there's some more. But again, what we talk about when you talk about collectivism and us as a people holding each other accountable, first of all, but holding each other in terms of support and love. It is important as a people. If the black man is going to rise again and take his rightful place in the sun, we have to do it by holding each other up, not competing and conflicting and conquering. That is not at all the spirit of our people and our ancestors. That is foreign to us. That's more of a Western Eurocentric, where competition is the way of survival. May the best man win. So we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, you got to be mindful of the teachings that has been laid down to us. And, you know, we in a time where now we're seeing men are being slaughtered, you know, massacred in the streets for running traffic stops, for traffic violations. I was watching the news earlier. A black man lost his life for a bag of chips. Right, the store owner killed them in New York over a bag of chips. He pulled out this big knife and he said he felt like his life was threatened. But it really was more the fact that the man took the bag of chips, you know, so he basically felt like disrespected, you know, so I'm going to protect my store from these foreigners that come into my store, these people that I'm in their communities, but they're foreigners to me. I'm going to protect my store from these people, and I'm going to kill this man over a bag of chips. You know, when you can actually subdue a man, you don't have to kill a man. You can stab a man in the shoulder, you can stab a man in the leg. Well, you know, we're going for the hearts, the neck, and the throat, right? And that was a shameful thing, to lose your life over a bag of chips. But even with all the murders that's taking place and all the acts of violence taking place, a lot of us black men, a lot of us kings, we're dying from heart attacks and strokes.
Yeah. You know, Nathaniel, the work that I do with VIP Transformative Living as a mindset coach and life coach is to help men retell their story, own our story. So the narrative that's out there makes us believe that when you get older, you are no longer a part of the productivity cycle. You can be cast to the side. And so, you know, you're either too young to contribute, you know, and you're a threat, or you're too old and then you need to be put away. And so we have to change the narrative and recognize that there's a book called From Age to Sage, that the work I do when you hit midlife, it is an opportunity to recognize that you have learned so much so far, and you are now in a position to position yourself for greater yet, and to also begin to pass on the baton and to teach and train the other young men that are coming through, you know, those that will be in their prime years, so to speak. You know, one of the things that we have lost sight of, in a sense of, which is popping up more and more with women that I speak with, is that black men are somewhat lost as to their role today with women stepping into a new direction. Our women are getting more they're graduating to higher numbers in terms of higher ed. They're making their own money. So the whole idea of provide and protect, what does it mean today? You know, that was old school, but women are providing for themselves, or can, even if they don't. And protection, you know, if you go to Atlanta and you go on the range, you see as many sisters, if not more sisters and brothers out there shooting. So, and in so many more ways, the way that those definitions pigeonholed us have changed. We have to change. We have to
We've been
begin.
reprogrammed.
Yeah.
We've been reprogrammed because we're from old. We are righteous people from old, and we always strive to live in a righteous context with the Most High and with the universe. So when you go into places, you go into the Bible, you go into Proverbs chapter 31, they talk about the virtuous woman, right? And it said the virtuous woman, she makes her own wares. She sells her wares inside the city and the gates, and all the people know her. So this concept that this this Western concept that came about as far as like the minister Bavada was to divide the family as a whole. This was the whole point of this concept, to even make the man think that he's more superior than his counterpart was actually a disservice to the man, because the man can't provide just intimacy to himself. A man just can't cook for himself all the time, or just raise all the children all the time, or responsible for everything, because as any other being in the world, we also get sick. Animals get sick, trees get sick, insects get sick, you know, and man also becomes sick. So if he's supposed to be the superior being, who takes care of the superior being when the superior being becomes sick?
Yeah. I
Right?
believe, yeah, I believe that we all have our roles to play, and these roles can be interchangeable depending on circumstances. You know, as a parent, my children taught me a lot about parenting, because I came from that system of these are the rules and this is what you do and don't do, and you can step this line and can't. And they respectfully said, none of that. That doesn't work. And I don't mean that they hit out and were defiant. I mean, for me to have rapport and really connect, I had to recognize that my rules were my rules. It didn't make them the rule. And so that's the same for my wife. I had to recognize that I had to step back sometimes. And if I want to lead, I could lead from afar or from the rear. I could lead from behind. I didn't have to always be up front. In other words, there are ways that you can co-lead or step back and sometimes allow the person in a better position to, if you watch two pilots fly a plane, there's a captain and there's a navigator and so forth. But there's a reason why there are two of them, right? Because you need one sometimes to take charge and do the thing. So while one guy is reading the instruments, the other guy is piloting the plane. And so he needs him, even though, so for a while, the navigator, the person responsible for that piece, is leading from the rear. And I think the same is true in terms of, as Black men, how we have to approach our lives. And, we have to, I think, in the course of business, sometimes we're in an institution called work, job, what I call just over broke. We have a job and we're stuck in this job and we're frustrated because there's this glass ceiling. Well, oftentimes we can, as it were, manipulate that glass ceiling and still lead and have a voice if we are wise enough to understand the environment and to recognize the power that we do have and not have anyone take that from us. And so we can do that. And so this is the work that I do on a daily basis when it comes to the mind reset of our men. And by the way, I work with women too, because women love the same men that I work with. And sometimes they don't know quite how to deal with men as they go through these transitions. The transitions you will oftentimes see in midlife are around career and finance and work, a bottle in one. They go through relationships, both for the family as far as the children that are in the house and the spouse, right? And they go through health. Health is a big knock for a lot of brothers who all of a sudden they start taking more pills to get through the day. And you have to recognize that that is a fallacy. We don't have to get old and decrepit. That is just not a real narrative. You can get wiser and smarter and therefore live a better quality of life. This is a way of thinking.
That's right. And this is an age where they actually using a lot of different substances, pharmaceutical companies and things of that nature to tell us that we're going to live stronger, better lives. But at the end of the day, these are economical markets, and they are capitalizing off of, the weakness that we have in our mindset and even our spirit, that we need other men to create different pills and substances to actually move us forward. I was working for a mental health organization, and it was really a challenging thing to work in this organization because I saw firsthand, the climate of men. I seen men that was stronger than me, they was younger than me, they could beat me quickly, right? But their mindset and their spirit about who they were was basically hitting from the substances of the drugs they were taking, right? And I would talk to them, but it was also that glass ceiling where it was saying, like, you can't say to them that they don't need medication because you work in a mental health organization. And a lot of these men probably didn't need medication, but because they was encouraged by the systems to use it, and because they themselves was somehow witness that they act different when they was on the medication, subscribe to this notion. Right? At the end of the day, we gotta look at, is it the profit man in totality, or is it profit systems that eat off of man? And when we're looking at these different programs that's actually out here and what they're actually doing for our communities and for the longevity of who we are. Let's say if I'm on medication at the age of 30 years old, what's the cutoff switch? Will I be off it at 32? Will I be off it at 40? Will I be off it at 50? Or this is a lifelong event? Is this something I can never shake off? I have to constantly be in a position to actually pay for these medications or have Medicaid or Medicare, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
These are things where we have to basically find that root to know that we are the root and the solution of our problems. And it's not just always looking for outside sources of entities to empower us as a unit. We have to empower one another.
Well, let me just challenge you too, and your listening audience, to just suggest that we are, even if we're not popping pill, we live in a framework where we're always intoxicated. We're always being medicated. Think about the fact that we are socialized through a school system of miseducation, the same system that's now pushing for CRT, right? Critical race theory to be eliminated and not raised. For the history, which is the truth beyond our slavery here in these lands of North America, they're pushing for this not to be taught both to the white kids and the black kids. So we're seeing all of these things happen. I saw recently in Texas, the legislator there is pushing for a new name for slavery in the textbook, and I think it's called involuntary. I want to say it's called
solitude.
No, it's sort of displacement, involuntary displacement, or something of the sort. But the point I'm making is, until we start holding the pen to script the narrative about who we are, and that's in everything. That's also in terms of how we have our religious text interpreted to us from the churches, so to speak, to where we are. It's how we are being educated or miseducated. It's how we are socialized in terms of the media. It's the kind of music and television that sells that we then become a part of. We want to be part of the dynasty of money makers, right? And so we sell our souls. It's a new type of pills that we're popping. It's a psychological pill. We're always drunk in this sort of thinking that we are not enough, that it's not possible for us, that we're not worthy. And so we have to go through these back doors and we strip ourselves of our value and value. VIP for me represents values, identity, and purpose. The three fundamental things that we all need to be, again, kings, right? Strong sense of values. Your beliefs shape your values shapes your behavior shapes your habit creates your character, your personal reality or personality. And so it's important that we get back and understand we have to define for ourselves what our values are, our core values. We can't sell ourselves for anything. We have to know our sense of identity, right? So that we don't have other people defining for us who we are. Nathaniel, every time we say I am, we manifest a truth, a reality.
I am. That's
yes,
correct.
Sir.
That's correct.
And
good.
When we align our values with our sense of self, our identity, then we can start unveiling the purpose. Some people spend their life looking for their purpose. Just be still. Your purpose is with you and will reveal itself. But we have to be in alignment. Your purpose is an assignment. To me, it's a spiritual assignment. It's the reason you were brought into this sphere we call the world. You came with an assignment.
Assignment. Because when you look at outside of yourself for this answer, right, you're never going to find it. Right? The guy, Stefano Dollar, the pastor that actually coming out now, he's redeeming himself about tithes and offerings. He was using tithes and offerings to empower his life. But tithes and offerings is to empower the lives of others. Right? And he did not use it the right way. And I think that as people, we get drawn into these things because we know that there's a higher purpose. We know there's a higher sense of living. always looking for that psychological connection, right? And religious artifacts, what I would say, can actually play on that psychology and make you think that they have the answer for your life. They might have the answer for their lives, or they might be peeking into the answer of their lives, but they will never have the full answer for your life, regardless of what teachers that they teach or what teachings that the teachers came from, right? It always go back to self-manifestation, right? Many men have basically used other men to catapult their lives to different levels, only to find themselves back amongst those men when they fall, because they misuse those men for their purposes. And this is something that we have to look at in society, of not misusing other men, right? Not coming to a spiritual awareness about who you are, just so you can basically capitalize on the lives of other men or the fallacies of other men, so you can have a better life than them, or you all supposed to have a better life together, right? So these are things that I'm seeing in a society where you don't want to get caught up in the concept that you are greater and more superior than others, regardless of what you have experienced, what mental or spiritual level you have achieved. We are all cut from the same rope, which is actually what I would say is life. We're cut from life to do life, to live life and to explore it and to create it on a higher plateau, not just for ourselves, but also for others. Because yeah, I see you right now, when you and I, we on this hemisphere right now. We sharing this space, right?
Yes,
sir. And that's a great thing, right?
Yes, sir.
But do I want to share the spiritual space with you as well? Do I want to go to another plateau with you and be on a higher plane with you? I definitely do. I don't want to just be stuck here knowing Wayne. I want to know Wayne. When Wayne transcends, I want to be able to transcend the same place that he's transcending, especially if it's a good place. And this is how I see this world, of not just being here, but moving to other levels or other planes and being harmonious with one another when we actually reach those different levels. When we can actually sit back and laugh at that and say, wow, man, you know, we was over here, but now we over here, right? This is really important. You know, I was reading the scripture, Abraham. You know, everybody talk about Abraham. He's the founding father of many nations or whatever. But real quick, there's a passage in the Bible that says Abraham went to heaven, and there was a passage in the Bible with three rich men. They would mock the poor every day. They would mock the poor at the gate and laugh at them. You're poor, you're poor, you're poor. And one of the brothers went to hell. And when he went to hell, he saw Abraham, he called it to Abraham, and asked Abraham to do him a favor. Abraham said, what do I have to do with you? I have nothing to do with you. You're on this plane, I'm on that plane. And he said, Abraham, listen, man, I don't want you to do nothing for me. I want you to go and visit my two brothers and tell my two brothers to change their ways, because I don't want them in hell with me. And basically, long story short, Abraham said that because they was doing this wickedness for so long, it's ingrained in their hearts, and he cannot do it for them. They have to do it for themselves. They have to come out of this light of darkness, this place of darkness, for themselves, to come into a higher light, to actually know that all life is valued and all life is worthy of being praised. And until we come into these different spaces, we'll lose our lives. We're not able to live our lives on a level that we need to live it on, because we believe that we have already reached that level of life that we seek, and we didn't yet. We're still here going through the transition. Everything that you and I do on this plane is a part of our bigger picture. We have a bigger picture than walking down Fifth Avenue, than riding Teslas, right? Than arguing over abortion laws and actually being killed by man-made bullets. They make it sound like God made these bullets, that God made these guns, and they gave them to men to kill men. Men actually created these things on their own so they can actually subdue and suppress other men according to their will and according to their own purpose, and not for the purpose of humanity itself, and so we all can elevate and reach to a higher level together. This is why the work that you do is so important in our times, because you're building men You're manifesting true life and true form, which is for all of us to be able to live and overcome all these different things. The flowers, they don't need man to cater to them.
Yeah.
The Most High caters to the flowers. The animals, they could cater to themselves before man came and put them inside cages and used them for produce and things of that nature. The animals was living their own lives and their own kingdom without the direction of man. Man also has the same ability of not being suppressed and dominated by other men for the purpose of ill-gotten gains.
You know, in the work that I do, thank you for bringing that up, brother. Powerful words and reminders of something beyond the superficial. The work that I do, I help men to transform, not because of anything that I do that's magical. I come from the understanding in the work that I do as a coach that we already have the answers within. So people may say, what sort of resources? Well, there are some resources. I'll give people resources in terms of exercises, breathing, and other things, and ways of nutrition and health and healing. Help them to do a lot of meditative visualization, mantras, those kinds of things, and books and all that. But the most powerful thing that I say that I do, if I can say this humbly, but to bring this point home, is to ask questions of the men themselves and allow them to dig within to get the answers, because we have already the answers. And so there's an innate, remember we talked a little bit about the spirit within. We have enough, we are enough, we are abundant. We're
That's
perfect.
right.
We're perfect.
That's correct.
So one of the things that I help to do is not provide, as it were, as much resources as provide an avenue for brothers to be resourceful.
That's correct.
And that means they figure out through the questions that I ask how to deploy the answers that brings up their best selves. I work from a position of strength with men, because in all of us is strength.
That's right.
And listen, we're going to have lives that have a lot of mountains. And I was reading or listening somewhere the other day where someone said that mountains were not made to travel through per se. We travel through the valleys, right? But
That's
every
right.
now and again, we have to get over the mountain. So make the best of the valley, right? And the same is true of, that's the New York background for you there, huh?
New York. Yes, New York. Yeah.
And every now and again, we have mountains in our lives that we have to deal with. But listen, Nathaniel, no one ever climbs a smooth mountain. So
That's
welcome
correct.
the ridges and the boulders, because those become footholds for you to leverage.
Yeah, you gotta grab one.
Yes, sir.
You gotta be able to position yourself, man.
Yes, sir. And that's how we learn and get strength. And so in the work that we do as men, we have to dig within. Sometimes we got to get off the Ferris wheel, the rat wheel, as it were. And we have to stand back, sort of dissociate, and not get caught up with the latest fad, the latest shiny thing.
That's great.
Not be chasing after the next, Denzel said, you've never seen a hearse with a U-Haul attached to it. You can't take it with you. So what we can do is leave the way we make people feel. And so that's the legacy as men.
That's right.
How do you make the folks around you bigger, better, bolder, and stronger? And you'd asked initially if I was prepared to talk about leadership. Well, that is leadership.
That is leadership.
True leaders help to make those people around them bigger, better, and bolder. To be a leader doesn't mean you stand on top of the pulpit or the summit and you pound your chest, because you couldn't do it without those people with you, beneath you, beside you,
Who
around you, even on top of you,
who built
sponsoring
the
and pulling you.
pulpit? Who
You
built the
know,
pulpit?
so I just wanted to add that piece to what we were sharing, because
Yeah.
that's the work I do. I help men, and it's not comfortable work. A lot of it is when you look at yourself sometime in the mirror, it's dark and ugly, because there's a lot of fake stuff on social media. We screen and filter and we take 6 shots before we choose one. We put our best foot forward for the public, but when they're gone and the lights are out, we got to enter that bathroom in the dark before we hit the lights. And that's what we see looking back at us. I don't know if you've ever done it, man. If you ever looked at yourself in the mirror at nighttime in the dark, sometimes your mind gets away with you. You see stuff. That's the stuff we have to deal with, the inner stuff. Right. And once we learn how to conquer the inner stuff, and I'll tell you, we may have religious rituals and rites to get there, but if we are patient enough and quiet enough, the information is innate. It comes to us. We know right from wrong. We know what's good for us. We know we shouldn't be cheating ourselves and others. We know these things, and yet we give into it. So it's about the discipline, and in at VIP Transformative Living, I help men to get disciplined, inner discipline, and hopefully they can find their higher self. We talk about their kingship, and
That's
the
right,
other thing is, I always say this: in the African tradition, there's really no king without the installment process of the queen mother getting involved. So we'll have to have a place for the queen to sit with us.
That's right.
If we want to become kings.
You build systems, so one day when you need that comfort, those systems will be there to comfort you. Right? So as you build the men through your journey, and this is going to be a great journey for you, brother, right? Understand that 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years down the line, those kingdoms that you built within men are actually going to come back and you're going to find comfort in those kingdoms that you built. They're going to come back to comfort you, to support you, right? Your legacy is in the things that you actually build in this life. Not what you take away from this life, but actually what you bring into this life. You can buy all the things that's out here, and none of these things will comfort you. But life itself, if you build life, it will find its way to come back to revisit you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And give you that sense of comfort, that sense of humility, and that great love that you also put out into the universe.
Yes, sir.
Right? No object in the world is greater than any one of these facets. I can give you a Tesla, or I can give you love.
Live more, laugh more, love more, my brother.
That's right.
The antithesis of life
correct.
is evil. Life, L-I-V-E. Put a mirror and you see E-V-I-L. So one that does not subscribe to life, liberty, love, is definitely dealing with something else, man, that we don't want to subscribe to.
We don't want to revisit that. We don't want to be a part of that. It's like you go on these different shows, they got a lot of ghost stories and stuff like that, where people get trapped in their closets, or they get trapped in households and stuff like that, that they once used as a possessive tool, right? And now when it's time for them to transition, they stuck in that bathroom, they stuck in that household. They can't move to the next level, right? Yeah. It's like being stuck in your mother's womb, and she's going to be forever pregnant and you never come out, right? It's one of those things. You don't want to get trapped in your mother's womb. You want to come out because it's time for you to transition. In 9 months, it's time for you to come out, you know what I'm saying, of this space of support, of love, because now you have to create on your own now. You was preserved there. They gave you the right meat, the right drinks. You know, they went to the doctor. They did everything they needed to do to make sure that you was healthy and preserved. So when your 9 months come, that when you come forth, you also bringing forth life with you when you come into the world. Because now you're crying, you're laughing, you're smiling, you're eating, you're drinking, you're crawling, you're doing the things that life is allowing you to do now because you came from this transition. So from that transition, we go into a whole other transition when this transition is over. And who want to be stuck in the womb forever? Who want to be stuck on this earth? This earth is our womb now that we actually entered it. We don't want to be stuck in this womb forever. We want to move from this womb to the next space that this womb is going to open up for us as if it was coming forth as a child.
My brother. I know we're at the top of the hour, my brother.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah. If
That's
I
correct.
can, may I just share a contact for me? And let me just say, in a week or from now, I'm going to be introducing a podcast series, and it's going to be, and so, you know, your listeners can plug in and they'll be given information. It's going to be Unlock the Inner VIP, how Black men find their greatness. And so I will be doing this podcast. It's going to be a weekly podcast, and you'll hear more about it. My email, if somebody wants to get in touch with me, is Wayne Dawson, I think it's on the banner, at VIPtransformativeliving.com. And they can leave me a message as well on my phone, which is 954-300-2004. They can text me or leave me a voice message. That's 954-300-2004. The email and my website is VIPtransformativeliving.com. So, you know, and I'm on all the handles like you mentioned, Facebook, Instagram. I don't do TikTok yet, but and I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really where I source most of my and I put your my content right now. So
I put your LinkedIn information up there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, thank you. And so again, I help Black men find their greatest strengths so that they can ease through midlife without crisis and come out on the other end bigger, better, and bolder, man, and join the spoils of life. And also, sisters who love their brothers, reach out to me. I can also help you to navigate what it is to do it successfully with a man who is, you know, in full need of support.
You said 954 for the number?
Oh, the phone number? 954-300-2004.
Gotcha.
Yes,
sir.
So
I actually shared it so they can actually always go back and actually look at that. But this has been a great interview, a great pleasure of connecting with you. You know, we talk periodically on the phone, right? And it's only because we recognize each other spiritual strengths, our spiritual awareness, and what we actually seek out of life. And we want the same thing for all the men and the women that's out there, you know, to explore, to experience, to connect with one another. We're not all going to connect, you know, on this plane. You know, unfortunately, this world is so huge, you know, but for those that come into your inner circle, that's introduced to you, you know what I mean, through the Most High, you know, through the universe, it's for you to connect with. It's for you to cultivate, increase, say I love you, you know, embrace. I give brothers hugs all the time, right? Because this is a part of our level of intimacy, right?
And let me just say, Nathaniel, before you go, just in case you have some naysayers saying, "Oh, he's spewing hate and he's, you know, anti-racist." I am not against white folks. I'm against the systems that support the inferiority of my Black folks, and so I am pro-Black, and that's a big difference. Just so folks need to understand. Yeah,
we know, as we said before, we all find our different light, our different purpose, and we evolve from one space to the next space. And right now, this space is to help other men, you know, Black men, to grow, to evolve, you know, so they can get to their higher levels, and they can also help others to evolve. And that's basically what this is about. It's about growing, evolving, and reaching higher levels within our lives to take us to other places outside this womb that we're in right now. And with that, Wayne say good day. I say good day to y'all.
I share my brother.
Yes, hold on for a second.
Thank you. Have a good one.